nobody is coming to save you. Read that again, because it might be the most important sentence you hear this year. Not because it's cruel, because it's true, and because the moment you accept it, your entire life changes direction. Somewhere out there right now, a person your age is sitting in a quiet kitchen, waiting for a call that gives them permission to start, waiting for someone to notice how hard they've worked, waiting for a partner, a friend, a child, a sign from God, anything to tell them it's finally their turn. And that phone is never going to ring. Not because the world doesn't care about you, but because the world was never designed to hand you your life. It was designed for you to build it. My name is Marcus Cole, and for the better part of my life, I believed something that nearly cost me everything. I believed that being alone meant being unqualified. I believed that if the room wasn't full of people cheering me on, I must be doing something wrong. I have since learned that this is one of the most expensive lies a person can carry into their 50s, 60s, and 70s. The years when we finally have the wisdom to build something real. But so many of us are still waiting for applause that isn't coming. Here's what nobody tells you about the second half of life. The people who raised you may not be around to guide you anymore. The career that gave you identity may have quietly ended. The children you poured yourself into now have their own lives, their own homes, their own noise. And in that new quiet, a certain kind of fear creeps in. The fear that your best years are behind you, that your voice doesn't matter as much anymore, that starting something new at this age is foolish. I want to tell you, as directly as I can, that fear is lying to you. Because here is a truth that took me decades to understand. The moment you stop waiting for someone else to believe in you is the exact moment your real life begins. Not your comfortable life, not your safe life, your real one. The one where you finally trust the only person who has been with you through every single day you've lived, yourself. Think about every difficult season you've already survived. The job loss nobody warned you about. The diagnosis that scared you at 2 a.m., the marriage that ended, or the one that changed shape. The friend who stopped calling. The years when the mortgage felt impossible and you found a way anyway. You didn't survive those seasons because a committee showed up to carry you through them. You survived because something inside you refused to quit, even when no one was watching, even when no one applauded. That part of you is still there. It has just been waiting for you to listen to it again. I'm going to walk you through what it actually means to trust yourself completely. Not the empty, bumper sticker version of that phrase, but the real, tested, lived-in version. I'm going to show you why the loneliest seasons of your life were never punishment. They were preparation. And I'm going to show you how to take everything you've already survived and turn it into the quiet, unshakable confidence that makes a person unstoppable. No matter their age, no matter their circumstances, no matter who is or isn't standing beside them. If any part of what I just said landed somewhere real in you, do me a favor and type the word alone in the comments below. I read every single one. And I want to know I'm not just talking to a camera. I'm talking to you. Because what I'm about to share next isn't just motivation. It's the exact shift in thinking that took me from waiting on the sidelines of my own life to finally stepping into it. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. Let's start with the problem most people never name out loud, because it's uncomfortable to admit. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that our worth is confirmed by other people. We were taught to look for approval in a parent's eyes, then a teacher's grade, then a boss's praise, then a spouse's affection, then our children's success. And there is nothing wrong with wanting to be loved and seen. That's human. The problem is when approval becomes the fuel your whole life runs on. Because when that happens, the moment the approval stops, the moment the room goes quiet, you stall out, you stop moving, you start waiting. I want you to think honestly about how many decisions in your life were made, not because they were right for you, but because you were afraid of what someone else would think if you didn't make them. The career you didn't leave because your family expected stability. The dream you buried because someone once laughed at it. The retirement you're supposed to be enjoying, even though some quiet part of you still has something left to build, but you feel silly admitting it at your age. That silence, that hesitation, that voice that says, it's too late for me now. That is the enemy we're here to dismantle today. Here's something I've noticed after years of watching people in exactly this stage of life. The ones who feel most stuck are almost never the ones with the least ability. They're the ones with the least self-trust. They have the skills. They have the experience. They have decades of hard-won wisdom that a 25-year-old simply cannot fake. What they don't have is the belief that it's still allowed, that they're still allowed to want something, to start something, to become something without asking permission first. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Ruth, because her story might sound familiar to you. Ruth spent 31 years as a school teacher. She loved her students, but somewhere in her 50s, she found herself dreaming about something she'd never told anyone. She wanted to write, not for money, not for fame. She wanted to put on paper the stories she'd collected over 3 decades of watching children grow into adults. But every time she sat down to write, a voice told her, "Who do you think you are? You're not a real writer. It's too late to start something like this." So she waited. She waited for retirement. Then she waited for the right time after retirement. Then she waited for her husband to encourage her more. Then she waited for a sign. Years passed in that waiting room she built for herself. One evening, Ruth's granddaughter asked her a simple question. "Grandma, what did you always want to do but never did?" And Ruth, without thinking, said, "Write." Her granddaughter looked at her and asked the question that changed everything. "What are you waiting for?" Ruth didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Just fear wearing the costume of practicality. That night, Ruth realized something that I need you to hear clearly. She wasn't waiting for time. She had time. She wasn't waiting for skill. She had a lifetime of stories. She was waiting for someone to hand her permission that was never going to come, because permission like that only comes from one place: the person looking back at you in the mirror. This is the twist that changes everything, and I want you to sit with it. The people you've been waiting on, the ones you think need to notice you, encourage you, validate you before you can move, most of them are dealing with the exact same fear in their own lives. They are not withholding permission from you on purpose. They simply don't have any extra to give because they're searching for their own. Waiting on other people to fill you up is like waiting for rain from a sky that has none to give. But here's what's coming next, and I want you to stay with me for this, because understanding why you've been waiting is only step one. What I'm about to show you is exactly how people twice as tired and twice as doubtful as you have found their way out of that waiting room. And it starts with a single decision most people are too afraid to make. Let's talk about what actually replaces waiting, because just believe in yourself is the kind of advice that sounds nice and helps nobody. Self-trust isn't a feeling you conjure up. It's a muscle you build, the exact same way you'd build strength in your body, through small, repeated actions that prove something to you over time. Here is the practical truth. You cannot think your way into trusting yourself. You can only act your way into it. Confidence is not the cause of action. It's the result of it. Most people have that backwards. They think, once I feel confident, I'll start. But confidence shows up after you've already started, not before. It's built the same way a callus is built, through repeated contact with something uncomfortable until it stops hurting and starts becoming strength. So let's make this concrete. If you want to rebuild trust with yourself at this stage of your life, it starts with something almost embarrassingly small. It starts with keeping a promise to yourself that nobody else will ever know about. Not a resolution announced to your whole family. A quiet, private promise. I will walk for 15 minutes tomorrow morning. I will spend 20 minutes on the thing I've been avoiding. I will call the person I've been meaning to call. And then, this is the part that matters. You keep it. Not because anyone is watching, precisely because no one is watching. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. Every time you break one, you're casting a vote the other way. Most people don't realize their self-doubt isn't some mysterious personality flaw. It's simply the accumulated evidence of years of broken promises to themselves. The good news in that is enormous. If self-doubt was built through repetition, self-trust can be rebuilt the exact same way, starting today, at any age. I think about this often in terms of what I call quiet discipline, the kind nobody applauds, The early morning walk nobody sees. The turned-down invitation because you're protecting time for the thing that matters to you. The hour spent learning something new when your friends think you're too old to bother. That quiet discipline is where real, unshakable confidence is actually manufactured. Not on a stage. Not in a spotlight. In the private, unglamorous repetitions that make up an ordinary Tuesday. There's a woman named Carol I heard about a few years back, in her early 60s, recently widowed, who decided she wanted to learn Spanish. Something she and her husband had always talked about doing together but never did. Her children gently suggested it was a lot to take on at her stage of life. Her friends changed the subject when she brought it up. So Carol stopped announcing it and simply started doing it. 15 minutes a day, alone, with a notebook and an old textbook. No audience, no applause. Just 15 minutes every single day for herself. 18 months later, Carol took a solo trip to Spain. She ordered her own meals in Spanish. She asked for directions in Spanish. She had a conversation with a shop owner about her late husband in a language she taught herself at an age when most people had told her it was too late. When she came home, her daughter asked her how she found the courage to go alone. Carol said something I think about often. I wasn't alone. I had 18 months of proof that I could keep a promise to myself. That proof came with me. That's what self-trust actually is. It's not a personality trait some people are born with and others aren't. It's accumulated proof, collected one small kept promise at a time, until one day you look up and realize you've become someone you can genuinely rely on. Someone whose word to yourself actually means something. If what I've shared so far has been useful to you, do something simple for me. Like this video, and send it to someone in your life who needs to hear it too. Because chances are, there's someone you know right now sitting in their own version of that waiting room, and this might be exactly the nudge they need. But before we go further, I need to tell you something about where this quiet discipline eventually leads. Because it's bigger than confidence. It's about something most people your age were never told they were still allowed to have. Now I want to take you somewhere deeper, because everything I've shared so far, the promises, the quiet discipline, that's the method. But underneath the method, there's a root cause most people never uncover. And once you see it, you will never think about starting over the same way again. Here it is. The real reason so many people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s feel stuck isn't fear of failure. It's something much sneakier. It's fear of being seen trying. Failure, when nobody's watching, is private and survivable. But trying something new in front of people who've known you for decades, people who have a fixed picture of who you are, that feels dangerous in a way that's hard to explain. What if my grown children think I'm being foolish? What if my friends whisper about it at dinner? What if I try this new thing and it doesn't work, and everyone who told me to act my age turns out to be right? This is the quiet trap so many people fall into without ever naming it. They'd rather live a smaller, safer life that nobody questions than a bigger, riskier one that might invite judgment. And I want to be honest with you about something. That judgment you're afraid of, most of it is imagined. People are far too consumed with their own lives, their own fears, their own waiting rooms, to spend as much time thinking about you as your anxious mind insists they are. The audience you're performing your caution for is smaller and less attentive than you think. But here's the deeper truth underneath even that. Even if someone does judge you, even if a friend really does raise an eyebrow, even if a family member really does say something discouraging, their opinion of your new chapter is not a vote you have to count. You get exactly one vote in how you spend the years you have left. One. And for most of your life, you've been letting other people cast that vote for you, disguised as their concern or their practicality. It's time to take your vote back. I think of a man named Walter, 71 years old, who spent his entire career as an accountant. Quiet man, predictable, reliable. After his wife passed, his daughter noticed something strange. He'd started sketching in the margins of the newspaper, little pencil drawings of birds, trees, the view from his porch. She asked him about it, and he brushed it off, embarrassed, saying it was just something to do. She pushed a little further, and he finally admitted something he'd never told anyone in 71 years. He'd always wanted to paint, but his father had called it a waste of a good mind. And he'd never touched a paintbrush in his life. At 71, Walter bought his first set of watercolors. He was terrible at first. Genuinely, laughably terrible by his own account. He painted alone, in his garage, telling no one for months. And slowly, month by month, terrible became clumsy. And clumsy became simple. And simple became something with real feeling in it. 2 years later, a local coffee shop hung 6 of Walter's paintings on their wall. He sold 3 of them in the first month to strangers who had no idea he'd started at 71 with a father's old insult ringing in his ears. When someone asked Walter what changed, he said something I want you to remember. I stopped asking whether I was good enough to paint. I just decided I was old enough to stop caring whether I was good enough. That is the exact reframe I want to hand to you right now. You do not need permission to try. You do not need guaranteed success to begin. You need only the willingness to be seen trying, imperfectly, at whatever age you currently are. Because the years you're worried about wasting on something that might not work out are going to pass either way. The only real choice is whether they pass with you trying or with you watching from the sidelines of your own life, waiting for a permission slip that isn't coming. Now let's talk about something that ties all of this together. Because I don't want you to leave here thinking this is only about hobbies or travel or watercolors in a garage. This is about something much bigger. It's about the relationship you have with your own remaining time and how radically that relationship can change once you stop outsourcing your confidence to other people. Here's something worth sitting with. Most people spend the first half of life building a version of themselves that other people approve of. The responsible parent, the reliable employee, the agreeable friend, the person who never rocks the boat. And there is real honor in that. Raising a family, holding down decades of work, showing up faithfully for the people who needed you. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, one of the hardest and most important jobs a human being can do. But somewhere in doing all of that, many people quietly set down a piece of themselves and never picked it back up. The second half of life, the part you're in right now, is not a lesser chapter. It is, for many people, the first real opportunity to pick that piece back up. Not because the first half didn't matter, because it did matter, and it built something in you. Patience, resilience, wisdom, the scar tissue of having survived things a younger version of you never could have survived. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from decades of evidence that you are far more capable than the anxious voice in your head gives you credit for. I want to tell you about my own father, because this is personal to me. He worked the same job for 38 years, came home tired every single night, and rarely spoke about anything he wanted for himself. When he finally retired, my mother expected him to relax. Instead, at 66 years old, he told her he wanted to build furniture. Something he'd loved as a young man before life got busy and responsible. She was surprised. His friends were skeptical. He built his first table anyway, alone in the garage, uneven legs and all. His second table was better. By his third year, people in town were commissioning pieces from him. He passed a few years ago, and at his funeral, half the room was sitting on chairs he had made with his own hands in what he used to call, with a laugh, my second life. I share that story not because everyone needs to build furniture or paint watercolors or learn a language. I share it because my father taught me, without ever using these words, that trusting yourself isn't a personality trait reserved for the young or the naturally bold. It's a decision, available to you at any age, in any circumstance, the moment you stop waiting for someone to hand it to you and simply start acting like the person you've decided to become. And here's the piece I haven't told you yet. The piece that changes how you'll think about everything I've shared today. The confidence you build in this season of life doesn't just change your own days. It changes what your children and grandchildren believe is possible for their own lives, because they are watching you, whether you realize it or not. Every time they see you start something new at 60, 70, 75, you are quietly rewriting what they believe about their own limits, at every age they'll ever be. Trusting yourself in this chapter is not a selfish act. It is one of the most generous, far-reaching examples you will ever set. And what I'm about to leave you with is the single idea I most want to carry out of this video and into tomorrow morning. So let's bring this all the way home, because everything we've talked about today points toward one final truth, and it's the most important one I have to offer you. You have spent a lifetime collecting proof of your own strength, whether you've given yourself credit for it or not. Every hardship you didn't choose but survived anyway. Every early morning you showed up when you didn't feel like it. Every promise you kept to someone else, even when it cost you something. That proof did not disappear when the applause stopped. It is still there, inside you, right now, waiting for you to finally turn it toward yourself. The idea I want you to leave with is this: being alone was never your punishment. It was always your invitation. An invitation to finally hear your own voice without 10 other voices talking over it. An invitation to keep a promise to no one but yourself and discover what that does to your confidence. An invitation to try something at an age when the world expects you to sit still and to find out that the world was wrong about you, the way it's been wrong about so many people who refuse to believe them. I want you to think about the version of yourself sitting here 1 year from today. Picture 2 versions. In the first, nothing has changed. The same waiting, the same quiet regret, the same dream mentioned occasionally and then tucked away again. In the second, you kept one small promise to yourself every single day for a year. You don't have to know exactly where that promise leads. Ruth didn't know she'd finish a book. Carol didn't know she'd stand in a shop in Spain speaking a language she taught herself. Walter didn't know his paintings would hang on someone's wall. None of them needed to know the ending. They only needed to trust themselves enough to take the next small, private step. That is what it actually means to become unstoppable. Not fearlessness, not certainty, not having every answer before you begin. It means becoming someone whose word to yourself is worth something. It means understanding, finally, in your 50s or 60s or 70s, that the only permission that was ever truly required was your own, and it was available to you the entire time. My name is Marcus Cole, and if there's one thing I hope you carry out of this video today, it's this: you are not too late. You are not too old. You are not alone in the way that matters. Because the one person who has been with you through every single day of your life, through every hardship, every quiet victory, every ordinary Tuesday, is still right here with you now. And that person has never once stopped believing you were capable of more. If this message found you at the right moment, and I suspect for some of you, it did, I'd ask you to do one more thing before you go. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, because I have more of these conversations coming, built specifically for people in exactly the season of life you're in right now. Not to entertain you for a few minutes and disappear, but to genuinely walk alongside you as you build this next chapter. You've spent a lifetime proving your strength to everyone else. It's time the rest of your life was built on proving it, quietly and consistently, to yourself.